Welcome to Play with Ray, and to skip or buy, here is why. In this review I will give you 3 things I liked and 3 things I did not like about the game, and I will answer the question whether to skip or buy this game. So yeah, about the good stuff, let's first dive into the mechanics, which I feel are really easy to master. So if you're looking for a game where the mechanics are easy to grasp, then this is certainly one of its strengths. Combat, to me, it felt pretty straightforward and you'll get the hang of it real quick. If you would compare this with more complex tactical RPGs like XCOM or Divinity Original Sin 2, this game won't overwhelm you with complicated systems, and I think that will make it more accessible if you're a casual player. I'm sure you won't be spending hours trying to figure out how everything works. And again, this can be a good thing. If you just want to dive into the action, then yeah, we'll be doing that soon enough. As for the second thing, I would like to say it offers a rich, albeit a bit of a corny storyline. So one of the standout features is the amount of dialogue that builds a rich story. It has, well, it's like a double-edged knife. It has its advantages, but also its disadvantages. I will discuss the advantage here, and the disadvantage you will hear from me in the bad section, the things I didn't like so much. So, as I said, it does feel a bit cheesy at times, but the narrative does help out to enrichen the world and enrichen the feeling you'll get from this game. So if you enjoy dialogue-heavy games like Mass Effect or perhaps Dragon Age, you might appreciate the depth being offered here. It gives the game a certain charm, even though I feel the story doesn't break any new ground. So for the third thing I like to mention as the thing I appreciated about this game, that the content is packed with RPG elements. So there's a lot to do here, from recruiting characters to upgrading your camp or your gear. So there are certainly some elements you'd expect from an RPG. But it has the added twist of being a turn-based game as well. So for those who like a blend of these two genres, much similar to me as it is in Fire Emblem, it could work because it does mix that tactical combat with the character management. And this game does offer a hefty amount of content in both the main narrative and via the side quests. So it is really a nice balance between action and strategy. Plenty to explore and plenty to discover. As the first bad thing I'd like to mention is that the dialogue, it really drags the game down. Now, while the game has its moments, the dialogue in this game really starts to drag after a while. It's not just that there's too much of it, it's also the way it's presented. The screen constantly shifts back and forth between characters during conversations, and honestly, it was giving me a bit of motion sickness. I found myself just clicking through the dialogue as fast as possible because it was really getting in the way of the gameplay. And you know, if you played something like Mass Effect or Pillars of Eternity, you know how well those games balance dialogue and action. And here, though, it feels like the conversations never end, and for me that really killed the momentum of the game. So as a second thing I did not like about this game is that the combat, which should be an important part of the game, it lacks any real depth. So speaking of momentum, the combat, while easy enough to pick up, it's pretty shallow. So there is no real tactical depth. There aren't any strategic bonuses for things like flanking enemies or using cover. That's something that older games like Jack the Lion managed to nail, and you would expect it would be easy enough for this game to at least copy that. And for me, the enemy AI is not very bright. They just walk towards the closest target, and if they're too far away, they won't even try to help their teammates. This for me made it very easily to exploit their movements and wipe them out one by one. So really, it felt like missed potential when you compare it to games like Divinity, where every move counts and the environment plays a huge role in your strategy. This game does not offer any sort of depth whatsoever in that direction. And as a third and final thing, which stood out in a negative sense for me were the audio and the visuals. They fall really short. I really had a tough time with the music and the voice acting. After a while, the background music really gets repetitive, and the voice acting, it also feels very flat. So there's no real emotion behind characters, which makes the heavy amount of dialogue even harder to sit through. Yeah, and don't even get me started on the facial animations. They're not great. So think of a less polished version of Fallout 4, where the mouse barely moves and expressions feel robotic. That's what this game basically offers. So for me, it really takes you out of the experience, and especially when so much of the game relies on character interactions. I feel they should have done more, way more. So let's dive into the question to skip or to buy this game. For me, Lost Eidolons, it may initially look polished, but the game's graphics and mechanics, they fall short. The environment, it's quite decent, but it feels flat and lifeless in many areas, lacking any dynamic interactions. For example, there isn't any destructible terrains or reactive weather systems, which you would often see in modern RPGs, and it really limits the immersion of the game. For me, as well as what I said just now, also the combat is something that is really under par. The game promises strategic turn-based action, but the battle system really lacks depth. Skills and abilities are often reused. There's little variation going on, and the fighting becomes very repetitive. For me, it is a good comparison to, for example, Fire Emblem, which provides diverse abilities and strategy choices, and Lost Eidolons does not feel in any way comparable to that, because it's really linear and it's really predictable in its combat. Furthermore, the voice acting, which is a key part of the storytelling, it feels a bit uninspired to me. The characters sound monotonous, the facial animations do little to convey the emotions of the story, and yeah, it's all a bit off. Imagine you having a climatic moment in the story, only for the characters to feel as if they're reading that off a script or of a sheet. So yeah, there isn't really much of tension going on, unfortunately. And I would like to say, as a positive thing, that there isn't a shortage of tasks and side quests, but the game spacing drags on a bit because you're forced to sit through long and most of the times very dull dialogue sequences, and I feel that many players will feel themselves skipping these scenes, and basically that's not how you should feel about the game. You should be watching and listening to those scenes, but I would be one who would be skipping through it because it becomes so repetitive and it's too boring to go through all of them, because there are quite a lot of them. Also, the game, it aims to be a mix of an RPG and a turn-based strategy game, but for me it doesn't hit the sweet spot for either genre. For example, many RPG fans, they look forward to a deep skill tree or character customization. At least I know I am. But here there isn't much room for that, especially because most of the upgrading is automated. So for me it felt that you miss out on the rewarding feeling of personalizing your own character and specializing as you see fit. So for me that's a really important component of an RPG game, and this game does not offer that. And I also feel that it makes the game less compelling because you don't have that much control over your character in general. So for me, one of the most glaring issues is the lack of tactical challenge. Every battle for me seems to follow the same basic structure, making it way too predictable. You have like games like XCOM or Divinity Original Sin, which really thrive on unpredictability, on dynamic battles and strategy being key. But for me, Lost Eidolons struggles to reach that level of complexity at all. It is not even close, not even in the same league. So yeah. Which brings me to my final conclusion. Should you skip or buy this game? For me, this game comes off as a standard and a bit uninspired tactical RPG. So if you're looking for a more lightweight experience and don't mind a bit repetitive battles or a bit bland story interactions, it might work for you. But if you're a real fan of the more robust RPG or strategy titles, this one I feel would be a skip. And this is what I'll be doing as well. I will not be playing this game anymore. So yeah, that's all it for my review, my thoughts about this game. I hope you appreciate my thoughts and my honesty about it. And please, if you have anything to add, then you can always mention whatever you like in the comment section. And of course, if you appreciate what I'm doing here, you could consider subscribing to my channel, which would really help me out a lot. Well, once again, thank you for listening to me, and I hope to see you the next time. Have a good day.